Hello and a very warm welcome to an India First special broadcast. I'm Gaurav Sawant. There is anger, pain and panic across Lebanon. First, the pager blast that led to at least 12 deaths and over 3,000 injured. And just moments ago, there are reports of blasts in walkie-talkie or mobile handset, communication handset, walkie-talkies, radio sets. There's been a massive blast in multiple walkie-talkies incidentally procured around the same time as those pagers that exploded all of yesterday. And the walkie-talkies exploded not just in the capital Beirut but also in the Bekaa region. We'll get you details. We'll tell you more about the anger and anguish in Lebanon. Multiple blasts reported from Lebanon and not just capital Beirut but also the Bekaa region after pager devices yesterday, handheld radio sets of wireless walkie-talkies exploded in two regions. 9 people have been reported killed and over 100 injured. There are other reports that seem to indicate that the injury numbers are much higher, and in some instances the death toll, local channels have put the death toll at 12. Mobile phones and home solar panels are also exploding across Lebanon, and this is something which is very surprising. Why are home solar sets exploding on rooftops and their batteries are exploding almost simultaneously with the walkie-talkie sets in different parts of Lebanon? The most harrowing image, that image that we're showing you on your television screen, is of a funeral, and this is the funeral of a Hezbollah member of parliament's son. A large gathering there, and one of the Hezbollah fighters was carrying a walkie-talkie set. There was a message, and as soon as he picked up that walkie-talkie or wireless set to respond, there was a massive blast in which some people lost their lives and many were injured, and this led to panic across the region, and this is being seen as a major escalation in the war in West Asia. So this is the second deadly wave of explosions in Lebanon in the past 48 hours. 9 people have been killed in the fresh blast. Remember, 12 people had been killed yesterday. Another 9 have been killed in the fresh serial blast, this time in walkie-talkies or wireless communication equipment. This equipment, incidentally, had also been bought just 6 months, 5 to 6 months back, where the explosions have been reported. One of the explosions occurred, as you can see in these images, during the funeral procession of Mahdi Ammar. Mahdi Ammar was the son of the Lebanese Hezbollah member of parliament Ali Ammar, and this funeral was taking place in Sohmor. One more blast took place at another funeral organized for some of the Hezbollah commanders who were killed in the pager blast yesterday. And there's been a wave of these pager explosions in the past 24 hours. At least 12 people were feared killed and over 3,000 injured, with over 100 believed to be critical. The walkie-talkie blast was smaller in intensity and size, according to initial reports that are coming in from Beirut, compared to the pager explosions that took place yesterday. But moments after the walkie-talkie blast, a mobile phone exploded at a shop in Beirut, and minutes later, which is being seen as perhaps a wave of coordinated explosions. First pagers yesterday, walkie-talkies today, one mobile phone at a repair shop where the battery was being removed, and then home solar energy systems started exploding in many parts of capital Beirut and across the Bekaa region. And these are seen as the stronghold of the Hezbollah. The explosions took place after Israel announced the expansion of its war goals to include northern residents returning to their homes near the border with Lebanon. The situation is extremely grim. There are reports that the Hezbollah fired many rockets in the direction of Israel to send out that message that they may be down, but they're clearly not out.
نفس المشهد من 4 سنين. وكنا بنفس المسؤولية. بنتمنى تبقى هيدي النهاية. كنت عم بشوف بكل مريض جزء من لبنان. كل مريض كنت عم بحاول، يعني كل مريض كنت عم بحاول رمم، وكنت عم بحاول رمم شيء من لبنان.
هذا العدوان حتما له عقابه الخاص وله قصاصه الخاص. هذا العقاب آت حتما بإذن الله تعالى، ولن نتحدث كثيرا فالكلام غدا لسيد المقاومة.
We are very keen in getting our population back to their homes in northern Israel. They have been removed from their cities as a result of the completely unprovoked attack of Hezbollah from Lebanon since the 8th of October. We are looking forward to a solution that will allow our population to go back to their settlements, to their cities, and for that to happen, Hezbollah forces will have to move north to the Litani River and implement UN Security Council resolution.
So we're getting you both sides of the story. We got you what the doctor in Lebanon was saying, and doctors in multiple parts of Lebanon have said that they are heartbroken. In the past 24 hours, they worked virtually round the clock trying to save lives, and for them it's an uphill task. The bleeding in some instances is so intense that they're unable to save lives. In some instances, like Iran's ambassador to Lebanon, he was reading that message on the pager when that explosion took place, and he's lost his eyesight. Doctors are still not sure whether one eye or both eyes have been lost. They're hoping to repair what remains of the second eye, is what doctors have said. Truly heartbroken by this wave of attacks, which doctors have described as a terror attack. You also heard Israel's ambassador to India, who's made it very clear that it's finally they're creating a situation for Israelis who are living in the northern part of country to get back to their homes, and they've left their homes after the 7th of October terror attack on Israel. But the United Nations Secretary General, he's extremely upset with this wave of attacks, and he says that there should be an independent and transparent investigation into these pager bombings. Let's listen in to the first reaction of the United Nations Secretary General.
And I think that what has happened is particularly serious, not only because of the number of victims that it caused, but because of the indications that exist that this was triggered, I would say, in advance of the normal way to trigger these things, because there was a risk of this being discovered. Because obviously, the logic of making all these devices explode is to do it as a preemptive strike before a major military operation. So, as important as the event in itself is the indication that this event confirms that there is a serious risk of a dramatic escalation in Lebanon, and everything must be done to avoid that escalation.
There is a risk of serious escalation, and everything must be done to bring temperatures and tempers down, is what the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres is saying. I want to quickly cut across to India Today's Foreign Affairs editor Geeta Mohan, who joins us for more on this big story. Also with me is Abhijit Iyer Mitra, a respected foreign policy analyst who joins us on the broadcast. Also with me is Pawan Duggal, one of India's best-known cybersecurity experts. But Geeta, to you first. What's the current situation? UN Secretary General says the need of the hour is to bring temperatures down, but whether it's in Israel or in Lebanon, temperatures appear to be soaring.
Well, absolutely. But then while the UN Secretary General Gaurav is saying that the temperatures need to be brought down, the bigger question over here that we have been discussing and talking about is, there be retaliation? Right now, Hezbollah's entire communication system seems decimated. Whether it's the walkie-talkies or the pages, the communication with which the communication lines and systems that they use to carry out attacks. They do not use mobile phones. But even if it were mobile phones, the other question that Hezb is asking is, what next? They've seen their pages go, they've seen their walkie-talkies go, what next? So the entire communication line with which they actually operate to coordinate attacks is gone. We are talking about escalation. My question would be, how would they escalate? How are they going to look at this? And again, Israel is on a timer, and I've been saying this because November 5th election and before that, they would like to cover a lot of ground. Netanyahu might have salvaged some of his image after October 7th with these attacks, because this is another level of intelligence that we are looking at, Gaurav. The fear in Israel is that after November 5th, should Trump win, there would be absolute liberty for Tel Aviv to do what they want to. But should Kamala Harris win, they really fear the latter, because that will try to really confine them to within the Israeli borders.
Fair enough. Stay with me for a moment. Let me now give our viewers some information that's coming in. So the latest information that's emerging from Lebanon indicates that model number AR924, and I want to show you those images for a moment. AR924 is the model number of the paging device believed to have been manufactured by Gold Apollo Company. That's suspected to have been used to plant and remotely detonate the explosives yesterday. Bought 6 months ago, around the same time that the walkie-talkies were procured, which exploded today. There are conflicting reports about the quantity of explosives used. Some reports from Lebanon seem to indicate that it's PETN, between 5 grams and 20 grams of this used, along with a special microchip. Let me quickly bring into this conversation Abhijit Iyer Mitra, Senior Research Fellow at the Institute of Peace and Conflict Studies, and Pawan Dugal, Cyber Law Advocate and expert on this. Abhijit, what do you make of the blast yesterday, followed up by the blast today, and the blast in the solar system, the solar energy system deployed on rooftops of various Hezbollah leaders?
Thank you, Gaurav. I'm also hearing that biometric devices right now are going off in Lebanon. Biometric identifiers are going off as well. The first thing you do when you know that this Hungarian company that was subcontracted to manufacture the gold devices were compromised, you would have checked everything that came from that supply chain. Now, you are telling me that this Apple Gold has also manufactured the walkie-talkies as well. Now, it is an inexcusable lapse of security for them to have not then checked every single device procured from that particular company. I don't know why they did not implement that. They thought maybe that, it was just the pager and nothing else. But, this is classic supply chain security. Hezbollah really is not, this is the first time you've seen such a successful decapitation strike, because these pagers were given to a certain command level. You could say the middle to lower top command level of Hezbollah, which has been completely decapitated in this. Losing your eyes, losing your hands means you cannot lead or command an operation anymore. Losing your legs means you're out of, or even, wounding your leg means you're out of operation for a few months at least, if not complete loss of the leg. So you have lost your entire middle management and lower top management, because your security failed, not once, but repeatedly the second time as well. The first time they come under pressure, and instead of upping their game, they've actually lost their game.
In fact, we're still waiting for some clarity. We're still waiting for clarity whether the walkie-talkies were manufactured at the same Budapest-based company as the pagers, because that company in Budapest seemed to indicate that they were only passing on the orders for manufacturing and not actually manufacturing them in Budapest. But of course, an investigation would reveal facts. But Pawan Dugal, what does this indicate? It would indicate that the entire communication system of the Hezbollah, many argue that they have a fighting force about 1 lakh. They themselves boast of a fighting force of over 2 lakh. It just indicates that the command and control system and the communication system top down has been decimated.
Well, very clearly speaking, this appears to be a ruthless planning and execution of a plan And I think that the second round of attacks are not the final one. We would be seeing further attacks as well. And when I look at from a very dispassionate viewpoint, the Pages attack represented the analog attacks, which were you looking at a technology that was 25 years back. Since morning, I've been talking that, well, the next stage of attacks will be on mobiles, because that's what you have actually tested your model on Pages and you've succeeded. You would want to replicate the same right now on mobiles. Clearly, in the second set of attacks, some mobile explosions have taken place, though not many. But I think what we've also seen in the second round of attacks is also a glimpse of what's going to be coming in. And this glimpse is the attacks into the Internet of Things. The very fact that you are able to go ahead and blast these solar panels which are connected to the internet automatically shows that now the plan of the cyber criminals is not just to target the mobile ecosystem and mobiles as the devices, but also targeting at smart devices which are connected to the internet via the Internet of Things. So I think it's a kind of an escalation that's happening. This is not necessarily the last one that we are seeing. I'm expecting more such attacks happening, but I think every attack is once again reaffirming my commitment and my belief that all this is nothing but representing a classical case of breach of cybersecurity. Maybe cybersecurity has not at all been given the premium that it deserves, and that's the reason why the attacks on Pages, the attacks on cellular phones, the attacks on walkie-talkies, and on car phones, radios, and even on solar panels have become successful. I think the world has to now quickly wake up, because this is a new warfare, and we must be prepared to deal with this kind of warfare.
This is 21st century warfare. This truly is disruptive technology. But there's breaking news that's coming in, and this breaking news input is coming in from Israel. Big development taking place. Israel's defense minister has gone on record to say that this is the start of a new phase of war. The Israeli Defense Forces, the IDF, are now turning their attention to the northern front. They think they're completely in control of the border with Gaza. That's the southern part of Israel. They were fighting a defensive war on the northern front, but now it seems that this war is suddenly going completely on the offensive. And once again, Pawan Duggal and Abhijit, to you first. This is, Yoav Gallant seems to indicate that this is like a major escalation as far as the Israeli forces are concerned in the offensive in the north to put Lebanon and Hezbollah on the back foot.
Absolutely. Netanyahu and Yoav Gallant in the past week have mentioned that we're turning our attention north. So this wasn't a surprise. I guess the pager attack was the opening salvo in what is now going to be a very sustained assault on Lebanon. The issue is we don't really know what the scale and scope of this assault is going to be. Their stated aim has always been to push Hezbollah north of the Litani and create a sort of buffer zone for rockets, to reduce the quantum and scale of rocket attacks on northern Israel. But if you remember the last time they went in 2006 into Lebanon, their tanks suffered a very significant loss, and it was counted as a strategic failure in their own internal assessment. I'm waiting to see what new tactics they've come up with. I don't know if it's going to be a ground invasion. If it is, you would see Israeli public mood turning and fairly rapidly. They're already quite stretched.
Give me a moment, gentlemen. I have Hassan Shwedan who's joining me, and he's a political researcher and a journalist who joins me from Beirut, from Lebanon, with the latest. Hassan, hope you are safe. Welcome back on India First. Hassan, what's happening in your country, sir? What's the latest that you can tell me?
So what's happening today is a continuation for what started yesterday. It's a new stage in the war. It's a new type of warfare Israelis are conducting towards Lebanon. And in order to assess it realistically, we should study what's the goals of such a new warfare. Well, they have said that they have moved the concentration towards the north, towards Lebanon, and they have two goals. Number one, to stop the support front, which Lebanon started on October 8th. And number two is to change the security situation in the north, whereby Hezbollah moves back from the borders in the north. And that's the two goals that they want to achieve. So what they are doing now is putting more pressure on Hezbollah, putting more pressure on the people in Lebanon in order to abandon the support front and in order to abandon
So do you see a correlation?
the border, them being at the border with occupied Palestine.
Do you see any link? The attack that took place on the pager system, the attack that has taken place today on the wireless communication system, the attack that we are told, and you can confirm that for us, the biometric system, apparently that's exploding, the rooftop solar system, that is exploding. Can you explain that, what's happening, sir?
Okay, first, let me put some things clear regarding to understand the situation in Lebanon realistically. First of all, for communication, Hezbollah doesn't use only pagers and walkie-talkies. They have their own landline, which they use to contact, and this landline is the safest way they use. So walkie-talkies are only used in special events, like today, because there were funerals, and that's why they were used. But Hezbollah yesterday, after what happened, they collected 90% of the devices. That's why we had today only limited casualties. As for the walkie-talkies, they used it mainly in the war, and they only what detonated yesterday were only 3,000 to 4,000 pagers, which were bought throughout the war, whereas Hezbollah has more than 100,000 pagers distributed to their people. So that's why, speaking about contact, well, they use the landline, which is till now not affected. As for the solar energy systems, till now there is no evidence that any attack has targeted solar energy systems and or telephones. We have only 2 incidents regarding telephones, and we're still not sure if it's the telephone who was detonated or it was another device inside the store, and what's the cause of that. But anyway,
Abhijit,
has been
do you see an escalation?
Now, they're taking precaution measures. They are trying to collect everything found in their centers with their people that has any type that could be targeted by any Israeli cyber warfare. And that's what they have been doing since
Abhijit,
yesterday.
do you see an escalation? Do you see Hezbollah retaliate? Some rockets were fired, but do you see Hezbollah retaliate, or will they regroup and rearm first? And Israel's strike was actually a preemptive strike to prevent a big counterattack by the Hezbollah.
So, launching rockets doesn't require too much, command and control in this particular case. But how is that an escalation? Because northern Israel has been under rocket attack for the whole of last year. I've sat through some rocket attacks sitting while visiting northern Israel in April this year. So this isn't an escalation. This is just the next phase in a war. And what happens out here is, the only thing Hezbollah can do right now is rocket attacks, because when your mid to lower top command levels are taken out, your ability to resist a ground or air invasion is almost non-existent. Your command and control is out because your main object of command and control, which are the pagers, have been taken out. So what is your redundancy? Zero. Your walkie-talkies may have been your redundancy. That is also now zero. So
but the fiber optic communication system, that remains. But Pawan Duggal, do you see most cyber attacks? Do you see most cyber attacks on Lebanon in the days and weeks ahead? And does that put Hezbollah on the back foot here?
I think I'm going to see a massive escalation of cyber attacks, primarily because this next wave of warfare there will be characterized, or is likely to be characterized, by decimation of the digital systems, networks, communication devices, and smart devices, so that the ability of the relevant stakeholders to act and react quickly can get reduced to the barest extent possible. So I'm expecting more attacks on the Internet of Things. I'm expecting the mobiles to be used as themselves as weapons by weaponizing the entire digital thought process. And I'm expecting far more damage to the digital ecosystem of the target community as we go forward. Well, the concerned perpetrators know fully well that it's a virgin land as far as the global works are concerned. No international treaty on cybersecurity, nothing to deal with regulation or misuse of AI for cybercrime purposes. And since it's a gray zone, they can continue to keep on pushing the boundaries
And this
till
is
such time the international framework
gray
comes.
zone warfare that's entering the hybrid phase and active phase so rapidly. We'll be tracking these developments very closely. Hassan Shwedan, stay safe. We will come back to you in the next 24 hours as we continue to track developments on the story very closely. To all my guests, many thanks for joining me.